I think. My dad was chief actuary.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order.
In the 60s, Erdenberger.
Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statutes, notice of this meeting was given on Wednesday, August 6, 2019. Pursuant to Section 84-14 of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held Wednesday, October 2, 2019 at 4 p.m. in the Board Conference Room of the Board Meeting Room, second floor at the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cumming Street, Omaha, Nebraska. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the retirement office at the Teacher Administrative Center during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 84-1412 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the Board of Education meeting room on the north wall. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Chair, before I call the roll, may I correct that the next meeting will be Thursday, October 3 at 4 o'clock p.m. We changed our meetings to Thursdays, not Wednesday.
Okay, it's so noted.
For roll call, Erickson.
Here.
Havlovic is not making it. Hirschenbach.
Here.
Logan. Blatchick.
Here.
Purdy. He's running late. And Ray.
Here.
4 present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the August 6th meeting, which you should have had in your packet. Are there any corrections to those minutes? All right, seeing none, I would call for a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion? All right, seeing none, you may call the roll.
Ray.
Aye.
Blatchick.
Here.
Purdy's not here. Logan's not here. Hirschenbach.
Aye.
And Erickson.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Okay, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discussion of the financial statements for July 2019. Cecilia?
Okay, in your package were the financial statements for July, the period ending July 2019, along with the budget variance report. I'm not going to go into too many details because next month will be the year-end financial statements. And so with that, I will just let you know that the portfolio closed the month of July at $1.280 billion. If there are any questions.
Any questions of Cecilia? Okay, if not, we don't need a motion.
Nope.
All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion with Simon Johnson. We have Darren Olsten's here with us today. And Sarah Greicher. Welcome, Darren and Sarah.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much. We got some handouts, just a quick little agenda to hand out to you. So we just wanted to come and meet today, just have preliminary discussion, go over the audit process, timeline, and expectations for this year, and then wanted to introduce some changes to our team this year with some turnover that we have had, and then allow you to ask any questions or express any concerns to us as far as the audit process goes. So I've been the partner on the engagement since we started doing your services. This is our 12th year, I believe. And then I'll introduce Sarah Greiger. She's one of the managers in our office and part of our employee benefits plan team. And I'll just let her talk to you for just a minute to share her experiences.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Like Darren said, my name is Sarah. I'm a manager in the audit department, and I have been involved in the OPS audit specifically
Kelly since 2014 and have been involved a little bit on and off with the OSERS audit during that time. And I work primarily with nonprofits and employee benefit plans.
So, yeah, Sarah's a very valuable member of our benefits plan team. She did help a little bit with the audit last year, so wanted to introduce her today and bring, since Kelly has left us, I know you remember Kelly from previous meetings. And then our other associate is also included on the agenda, Andrew Lehman. He works on some benefit plans as well. He'll be doing a lot of the test work related to some of the testing that we do. So just want to go over it. So last year's, just kind of revisit the findings from last year's audit. We did have 2 journal entries to adjust investments on a trade date basis as opposed to the settlement date basis. So just recognizing that when the trades took place, that was all information that we received from the Nebraska Investment Council. And then over accrual of sick leave, that was across the district as a whole. It affected all the employees of the district. So the employees of OSERS that were part of that, it did affect that as well, and we applied that to that fund. We had one uncorrected misstatement, and that was related to accrual for a litigation settlement that you received subsequent to year end, but were aware of it as of year end and should have just accrued for that settlement, but it did not get received until a later date. So we passed on that adjustment. It was immaterial to the financial statements. The adjusting entries from last year and the past adjustment are both attached to the agenda for your reference, but again, those were from last year's. And then we did include our management recommendations from last year's audit as well. Just kind of a refresher for the board as to what the findings were from last year's audit from that standpoint, and a couple of them are related to the adjustments that we had. So I want to go through the audit timeline quick. September this month is going to be start doing our planning process, and we'll continue to touch base with management as to how things are progressing to get ready for us for the audit. So we will be following up with Cecilia over the next couple of weeks just to kind of touch base and see how things are coming along and how things are progressing. Then we will get the GASB Statement 67 report from the actuaries. I think that's about 2 weeks from when they get the final trial balance and financial statements of the plan. That is necessary for a lot of the GASB disclosures and some of the supplementary information in the audit reports that we need from that standpoint. We have the weeks of October 7th and October 14th scheduled for field work, where we'll come out and do our test work and things, and hopefully the timing of the investment information that we'll get from the Nebraska Investment Council, we'll be able to wrap most of that up that second week. Some of the work on the investments may spill over into the following week from that standpoint. So we will expect to receive the investment information early mid-October from that standpoint. We'll have an exit conference with management to discuss the preliminary findings, tentatively scheduled for the end of that second week on the 18th. We can adjust that accordingly as need be into the following week, but that's kind of where we have it tentatively scheduled. We'll try to have drafts but no later than November 1st for management to review and then issue the final reports by the 5th will be our goal, and then we will present the audit results to the board at your December 5th meeting. All right. December 5th. So that's kind of the snapshot of the audit timeline and what we expect to do. Our deliverables, again, are the audited financial statements, report to the board, and the management letter, and then we usually have a PowerPoint handout with some graphical presentations and some information for you when we present at the board meeting. So then I'll open it up for questions, and then I think you're going into closed session after us, and I think we're going to be part of that. So without management present, you can ask us any concerns that you have with the audit process without management not being present. So that's kind of where we're at. But if you have any questions right now, you can certainly ask them.
During this timeline, is pretty similar to what it's been in the past.
Yes,
There's no real
yes, yeah.
difference.
There hasn't been a whole lot of differentiation from that, and that's kind of the timeline. When you sent out your RFP, it's the timeline that we have included in our proposal as well. We'll try to stick to it as best we can. Obviously, circumstances may happen. We may change by a day or two here and there, but depending on when we get stuff, because we're kind of reliant on receiving information from other parties, so to get the work done. But that we'll try to stick to it as much as we can. So.
Okay.
Is this timeline kind of tight compared to other clients? Because our hearing is August 31.
Yeah. So from a standpoint of the reason why we have the delivery date, there isn't really a deadline to get your audit done. It has to be filed with the state once it's complete. But you guys are included. The plan is included as a fiduciary fund of the district because you're the single employer pension plan for the district, and the district has a reporting requirement to have their audit in by November 5th. So that's why your date is the same as that date. And so it's pretty tight to get everything done and get the district's audit done as well at the same time. But that's the reason that we are sticking to that timeline. So. Any other questions?
Anybody questions? Okay. If not, at this point then, I would call on Roger for a motion.
I move the Board of Trustees go into closed session for the protection of the public interest, prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, to discuss with legal counsel Cecilia Carter, Darren Olston, and Sarah Geiger litigation matters affecting the trust fund, personal financial matters regarding members of OSERS, 2019 audit of OSERS, and personnel evaluation.
Okay, it's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? If not, you can call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Hirschenbach,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Lachek,
Aye.
Purdy, and Ray.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, motion carries. Let me remind the board that the purpose for closed session is for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals. To discuss with legal counsel Cecilia Carter, Darren Olston, Sarah Greiger, litigation matters affecting the trust fund, personal financial matters regarding members of OSERS, 2019 audit of OSERS, and personnel evaluation. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Cecilia, would you call the roll, please?
Erickson,
Here.
Hirschenbach,
Here.
Logan,
Here.
Lachek,
Here.
Purdy,
Here.
Ray,
Here.
6 present.
Okay, we have a quorum. At this moment, I will call on Dr. Logan for a motion.
I move that the OSERS trustees extend a contract extension and a salary increase for Cecilia Carter for the 2019-20 and the 2020-21 school year that is equal to the amount the increase received by in the negotiated agreement between the Omaha Public Schools and the Omaha Education Association.
And I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All right, seeing none, you may call the roll.
Logan,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Hirschenbach,
Aye.
Lachek,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay, motion carries.
And I thank you.
Yeah.
Here for 2 more years.
Okay, and at this point, I'll call on Lance for a motion.
I move the Board of Trustees ratify September pension payments in the amount of, $10,645,546.45 to 4,981 payees. Approve the September staff payroll in the amount of $30,017.11. Approve 17 new retirements with an effective date of September 1, 2019. First pension check paid October 3rd. Ratify the termination of 5 retirement benefits due to death of the retiree and the continuation of 1 joint and survivor annuity. Approve the refund of $352,087.76 employee contributions plus interest to 21 former members of OSERS, and approve September accounts payables in the amount of $34,473.
All right, it's been moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, you may call the roll.
Ray,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Zek,
Aye.
Logan.
She's gone.
Oh, sorry. Herschenbach
Aye.
and Erickson.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, the next item on the agenda is the employee contribution regular interest for this coming fiscal year.
Okay, so briefly, Nebraska Revised Statute Section 79-978, subsection 25, outlines how regular interest is applied to non-retired members' employee contribution account balances. It is to be based on the 1-year daily Treasury yield as of September 1st, but given September 1st was a weekend this year, the first business day of September was September 3rd. So according to the United States Treasury website, the 1-year daily Treasury yield rate as of September 3rd was 1.72%, or 172 basis points. This will be applied commencing September of 2019 through August of 2020 to the non-retired members' employee contribution account balances, and that is based on account balances as of August 31, 2019, and will be applied going forward. There is, since there's no need for a motion because it's now prescribed by statute.
So you're just informing
This
the
is
board that
just
that's what it is.
information for the board and the public.
What was it last year? Do you remember?
It was
Oh, here it is.
249 basis points. So it went down.
Went down a lot. Yeah. Okay. Any discussion on that point for Cecilia? All right. Seeing none, the next item is the action on the NCTR annual meeting, the OSERS delegation.
Okay, so this year, Mr. Erickson, Mr. Purdy, and Mr. Ray have expressed interest in attending NCTR annual meeting, which will be the first part of October 12th through the 16th. And we always have a delegation for the business meeting. These 3 are the only ones going, so I ask for a motion that I can file with NCTR that Mr. Erickson and Mr. Purdy are the delegates, and that Mr. Ray, considering he is going to be busy with other things at NCTR, is OSERS alternate.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and second. Is there a discussion? All right, hearing none, you may call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Herschenbach,
Aye.
Plazik,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is action on the resolution for James Ripa that will be presented at the NCTR conference.
Okay, at last meeting, the board asked for me to prepare a resolution of appreciation for Mr. Ripa for his service to the OSERS Board of Trustees. The resolution is in your packet, and I ask for approval to file that with NCTR.
I'll move approval of the appreciation resolution for NCTR for James Ripa.
Okay, been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, you have a copy of it in front of you? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Is there discussion on that?
So is Jim going to be at Nashville?
No, but this will be sent to him.
Okay.
After they process it through their proceedings, they do it nicely and put it in a folder, and then they mail it to the person.
Okay.
So this is presented from the NCTR. So what's our role in approving this?
That it's from our organization putting it in. The board is agreeing to put this into their proceedings for this annual conference, and then they present it. So we are filing it to be presented.
Okay, any other questions? All right,
So he's just going to receive a copy of it, basically.
It's a pretty copy.
Okay, I don't want to cut anybody off. Any other discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Lasik,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Hirschenbach, Erickson,
Aye.
5 ayes.
All right, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discussion on the sustainability study.
All right.
Who
Is Ms. Richards, you're up.
Awesome, thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, I would love to, thank you. Appreciate it. Don't want to hit anybody's toes, thank you. All right. Pull those out. First off, I know, right? I know. This is district printing, and you know, there's economics of time. So I think they've. I'm going to walk through each of these, and we can. You can make notes next to those if you would like to. Again, I'm Linda Richards. I am here with the Better Together Coalition. Members are present here this afternoon as well. We thank you for the opportunity to be here at the OSERS meeting. You have a little bit of background information in the handout that you have, but in late 2018, Dr. Logan formed this group of stakeholders with the purpose of there being a unifying effort around issues that are facing the Omaha Public Schools, employees, and the community. Membership includes representatives from OPS, NSCA, OEA, OSAA, OEA Retired, OSERS itself, and SEIU. Since convening, we have met monthly, sometimes twice monthly during the legislative session to establish goals, discuss options, review legislation relating to several issues that are facing the district. The purpose of the meeting with the OSERS trustees today, as we've requested, is to discuss specifically one of those issues, and that is the pension shortfall. In your packet, you have a little bit of material that we have as our guiding principles. The first thing that you see is what we have defined as the problem in this area with regard to the shortfall. And so these are this has been the topic that we've been talking about as a part of our conversations as a group. You'll see that the shortfall amount, which ostensibly we articulate as being about $1 billion, and then the ARC payment being the other issue that we have been discussing. Why are we working on this? Well, again, as I reiterate, the attempt that has been made at this point is to bring the groups together to find a collective voice, to have a collective approach to looking at this issue. Everyone who is a stakeholder is affected by this issue, and so it's really important that we be conversing and talking together. So restoring trust is a part of our conversation with our constituencies, solving what needs to be solved, staying on track with regard to the ARC payments. Not solving the problem will impact recruitment and retention of all staff, is a concern that we have, and seeking a solution that will be focused on an expected return, meaning what we're there to discuss is what we will accomplish. The guiding principles that our group has been following, I think, are really important, and I'm sharing these as well as the values that are shared by the group, because this is what we used as we had the conversation about the sustainability report. We talked through kind of the various designs that we reviewed in the report, checking them against these principles and these values that that our group is holding to. An important principle for us is providing security for current employees and retirees. that there be a share in the sacrifice of the effort going forward in trying to solve this issue, that we seek equity, that we empower our voice, that we commit to sustainability, provide validation, adhere to transparency, something that we feel is very important in this cause, that we cultivate communication and that we show integrity. Our values are very important as well. They are security, sacrifice, equity, voice, sustainability, validation, transparency, communication, and integrity. They are articulated for a reason there. We think that it's important that as we have conversations about how this shortfall is going to be addressed, that we're looking at this through a lens of some criteria, something that we can vet these options and these discussions through. The next slide that you see, or the next information that you have, talks about those being the criteria that we have used. And then the next slide that you see is our key success factors. We believe in order for, as we work on this issue going forward, to be successful, the organization, we need to support each other, and the participating organizations need to support one another. That there's active representation from each organization. I can tell you that each meeting it is attended by a representative from each of the organizations. They have been actively involved and participating in the conversation. Collaboration is another success factor that we believe is important. It's why we're here today with you. Facilitation, learning attitude from all participating members, active, clear, and consistent communication between coalition members and their respective organizations, consensus decision-making, anticipation that there will be bumps in the road, and plan to manage through them, and that we adhere to process. Those are the factors that we think are important and what have guided us as we've moved in through our conversations. The next slide that you'll see are some of the options that the Better Together Coalition has been looking at and discussing over the last few months. We have been talking about COLA in a multitude of different ways. An ad hoc trigger at 80%, compounding being eliminated, the amortization, which, as you recall, we sent a letter from the BTC to the OSERS trustees asking for that consideration, and we thank you for that action that took place with regard to the amortization. De-risking lump sum payment, drop, 4-year to 5-year smoothing, a fifth tier, which we also saw with regard to the report, the sustainability report. 20-hour to 30-hour employees, which has been analyzed, and ARC payment. Other ideas have been solicited and thought through. In June, we held a work session collectively together. During that work session, we talked more in detail about these options, and we walked through what those looked like, the impact that they could have. The next set of slides are a part of what those discussions entailed with regard to funding changes, as well as COLA changes, and then other options that you see there. Want to make a note with regard to COLA changes, just for those that are looking at this and asking what is AAL. We used the definition from the Kavanaugh-McDonald board summary found on page 5 of their report. AAL is defined as the difference between the liability and the actuarial value of assets as of the valuation date. So that is what we are using as well in looking at those numbers. So you'll see some of the impact that we looked at with regard to various options with regard to COLA changes. You'll see also in the additional options that were looked at, cap service at 30 years and the impact that would have, all the way through to the partial lump sum option with regard to its impact. So those are some of the items that we have been talking through and vetting, and we appreciated having the opportunity then to look at the sustainability report. We met on our last meeting here and reviewed that sustainability report. We appreciated Mr. Ellis being present to walk us through the sustainability report and talk about the design options. So we thank you, Jim, for doing that for the group. Some takeaways that we wanted to share with you today. And so I will start with this part, and then I will ask any of the members of the coalition if they have any additional comments that they'd like to make. Design Plan B was felt that it radically changes benefit makeup between OSERS and MPERS, that the ARC contribution amount was higher than current contribution level, and so there was some concern about that. Design Plan C is the 30-year cap. It was a question that we're posing. Is the 30-year cap on new or existing employees? How is interest being calculated? Is there a reason to not offer the PLSO option? And how was the $30 million ARC amount established? In Design Plan D, the question, again, is about how the $25 million ARC amount has been established. I will open this at this point for other members of the coalition if there are additional comments with regard to the report, the sustainability report, that anyone wanted to add. Hearing none, we'll turn to comparison of sustainability report and our BTC options. So then the conversation that we had turned to looking at the sustainability report and then the options that we had been looking at and thinking through and talking as a group. And a few takeaways that we want to share with you that we think we'd like to, I guess, start to have those conversations expand. In our June work session, we did look at some scenarios that we felt were able to reach all groups and have an impact on all groups that are involved. And so we think that's important. You go back to one of the guiding principles that we had, that there's shared sacrifice. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at options that is the case. Design plans that impact the COLA, we feel, place more burden on retirees or close to retirement, and certainly future retirees. And so that is a concern. Funding changes in the BTC options provide for more flexibility for the district, we feel. The concern right now, I think, is can we see some various looks at where those payments are starting, right? And so we presently now are around 20 million. And so seeing the first payment option jump to 25, we wanted to see if there were some opportunities to maybe see some stair-stepping along the way. And certainly, other options that we've been looking at and thinking through were not all analyzed. And so that would be something that we would want to talk here with the OSERS board about how do we look at some of these other options that maybe we have been considering at the BTC. So next steps, what are the next steps for the OSERS Board of Trustees and what you plan to do with the report? And so that part of this dialogue we feel is an important as it impacts kind of our next steps and what we're going to be thinking through. And so to that, we ask, how can the Better Together Coalition and the OSERS Board of Trustees work together now that we have a sustainability report, we have some analysis that we have considered and some options that we are looking at as the BTC, and how can we bring some of those thoughts together? So I would leave us with those questions and hope that we could invite some conversation about what are our next steps and what are things that we need to be working on together.
Well, I think at this point, I mean, we've gone through this whole study, we put the study together, we provided that now to the plan sponsor. It's up to them to do with it what they will. And we're not looking to follow up on anything else at this point. So,
me personally, I'd be curious to hear your, if you have other scenarios that we didn't consider. That would be amazing. I'm thrilled that that we're all trying to work together here. That's exciting.
Super.
And then, I'd love. We're after solving this, and so if we can get some more options. At this point, at least my take is that we had several options that we worked with. Kavanaugh McDonald came up with different permutations and combinations, and we looked at savings or not savings, or horrible things to suggest, but let's look at it anyhow. And we came up with plans, ABC
and D.
and D, of course, ABC and D. and that's about all the further we can. Last I checked, we can't go down and say, Senator Coulterman, buddy, can you do a bill for us that involves these things as a retirement
we can't
holder.
make benefit enhancements.
Right. So we're limited in that respect. But I do always like hearing different ideas.
Well, I think I'll speak next. I think that, tonight we will present the 5-year projected budget as well as this year's budget. And one of the things that we continue to do in that plan is to plan for the higher amount pre-change of the funding policy. And that allows us, it gives us some flexibility in case we can't, right? But also we are making a good faith effort and did already in August with our larger payment than was required to do our part to solve but to contribute to the solution and to also make sure that we can do the other things that we said we were going to do, which are thinking about how we retain our employees through increased compensation and benefits, and looking out for our current employees as well as providing or taking care of our retirees. So I think from our standpoint, that's kind of where we are now. I think that it's just really helpful if that's as a group, because we all can lobby, right? So we all do. But to decide together for the things that need legislative input and legislative action, that we're going to pursue them together, because it would be pointless for us to do that, and then we have folks on the that in other that are trustees or in any other positions to be doing things that are counter to what the efforts are. We either will be united and work through it, or we will divide it and we'll have a solution imposed. So that is kind of the way I see it. I'm very honest about that. I'll just say it out loud. It's really, and when I first came on board, that was one of the things that I noticed, and then people talk to me about, well, you come down here as the superintendent and you say this, but then I've got this group coming to me and telling me this other thing. And that was one of the reasons when we started researching, and then again for this body, we've had a lot of intervening things happen during the year that have lessened voices or raised other voices, and that's really not the point. The point is that we have people who are our employees or former employees who are dependent, or future employees and current on this resource, and we have to kind of get past the who's got the bigger ball out on the playground and get this kind of worked out. So that's kind of what my stance is on behalf of the school administration. But I can't not say that has happened, and people have shared with me that that's happened, that folks are saying something different.
On the sustainability report, what are the steps you're going to follow right now? Does it go to the school board, and then if the school board says yay or nay, it goes to the legislature? What exactly are the steps that you're going to be doing now?
The school board president and the superintendent have a copy of this actual study produced by Kavanaugh McDonald, along with a memorandum just kind of outlining everything that we did along the months from October. And so now it is the school board's decision to make if they want to do anything with the information we've given them, or as Ms. Richards just discussed, if there are more ideas, then this board decides whether we want to look at other ideas. But as Dr. Lowe said, we have to get to some decision on how to fund this plan so that it takes care of today's and tomorrow's members.
Thank you.
Because remember, in terms of benefits and that sort of thing, I mean, this board can't promote benefit changes.
Right.
So we wouldn't be in a position to go to the legislature and try to promote anything like that. We wouldn't do it.
Right.
We just can't. So.
But I also appreciate Dr. Logan's comment that we really need to be united in solving this.
Absolutely.
Thus our presence.
Yes.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I think that honestly, the change in the funding policy and the potential 4-year to 5-year smoothing are things that will help us work around the edges,
Right.
so they give us time to come up. I mean, they are not solutions at all. So I just want to make sure that that's like,
Yep.
that nobody
a good point.
is thinking that anybody thinks that that's a solution for the long term. But they did give us a little bit of time to figure out, first of all, to get through the study, because we have to be honest. There's a study going on out there about management. And if there are other things that we would like to see, now's it's a good time to say, I'd like to say to President Snow, this is something that I wouldn't mind seeing moving forward. And then obviously he would takes that forward. We have our wonderful lobbyist who's here, Senator Lindsay, just for that reason, so that he can help us on the way. And there are many others who have reached out in all different kinds of ways to let us know that they want to help.
Absolutely. Other thoughts from coalition members?
I would echo Superintendent Logan's comments. Understanding OSERS board can't go down there to advocate, but your members, you, President Erickson, joining or being a part of the Better Together Coalition and advocating to the Omaha Public School Board, which then charges our lobbyists to go down to Lincoln to lobby Senator Coltman and the Retirement Committee for this type of legislation. So I think that brings a more prominent presence when they do see the president of the OSERS board part of the Better Together Coalition. I think that speaks volumes, in my personal opinion. And this is just me from sitting from right here. So.
Senator Colderman said that he wasn't interested, or the legislature wasn't interested in changing any benefits for anybody at this time. So every one of our scenarios or options all have changes in benefits. So why would we take something down to them to change benefits when we know he said he wasn't even going to look at them?
I would answer that based on what I know. I mean, I would think that if everybody here gets together with a plan and it happens to include some benefit changes, then it's going to be up to Senator Colderman to say yay or nay. He may have a much harder time saying no if that's what we all want to do and everybody here has agreed to those kind of changes, I would suspect. Now, I could be wrong about that, but we come to him with a solution. Here's our solution. Everybody's in favor of it. I would think he'd have a hard time saying, I just can't buy that. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is that, Walter Sue, is that it's us deciding that, and then in the intervening time between we decide that somebody doesn't work to pick us off one at a time, because that is a strategy that works well by saying, well, you shouldn't, you let them fool you into that, right? You know what I mean? Or whatever. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to have this meeting with the OSERS trustees, because they have powerful voices in the state, and we don't want to, we have this Better Together coalition, and then we have never met with all of the trustees. First of all, I don't think it's fair, right? Because they're a representative body for the plan, and so that's why we're here. So I mean, I think that's the catch, because I mean he's a skilled leader, Senator Coltman, he knows that at the intervening time between you make the decision and the time you get down there, somebody's going to go to the parking lot, perhaps even after this meeting, and say, some other things. So we have to decide that we're going to have one voice and stay together. And I think that when we had the meeting in June, many people raised. I know I raised that I was concerned with some of the scenarios that disproportionately affected some groups. So we kind of worked through that, and I think we have to continually do that. I mean, I know that you're going to hold our feet to the fire about.
Some group you're talking about are the retirees.
Right, exactly. No. I'm not. No. I don't think it's just the retirees. Right. I don't think it's just.
At first, it is.
Yeah. Well, at first, yeah, because you're the most directly impacted, right? Immediate, right? So, I don't. That's not a secret, right? I'm not. And I'm not saying I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, you're just supposed to protect your constituency. That's your role. But I think that's kind of how we have to think about it. I think Don makes a good point that if we are united, that it is very compelling to say, well, they're willing to sacrifice. All these groups say they're willing to sacrifice for the benefit of the plan. There's a long intervening time in between that. Even if it's just 2 days, it's a long time.
Let me just say too here at this point, we've got Pat Beckham is here from Kavanaugh McDonald. She's our actuary. I mean, if you have some specific questions relative to any of the plans that you see, that's why I asked her to be here today, where she can answer those questions maybe much better than I can. So I would invite you to do that.
Well, no, Pat, were you involved in did you do some of the reporting for the Minnesota group? Yes. So, in your experience with them, in between when that happened and when they had legislative action, what were the landmines, or that you can recall, or that you could share?
Right, and Jay Stoffel or somebody at the system probably can give you a lot more information.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I think the legislature was the biggest landmine.
Wow. And there's that.
They had 3 years. It took 3 years.
Right.
But the legislation gets introduced and then it got changed initially, and all that was left were changes for the retirees. The governor vetoed it because it wasn't balanced. It came back the next year. I don't remember exactly why it didn't pass, but it was it was political, and at the same time, the legislature sets the investment return assumption. So that's a loaded issue, and that's what was kind of driving the need to change. They actually made changes in 2010 after the Great Recession.
Right.
So this is round 2 for them in less than a decade. But they had, at least from my perspective, and I'm only up there a couple times a year, but they had pretty amazing solidarity on their membership. They were rock solid. Pretty amazing because they had some pretty significant changes, and they just kind of stuck with it, I think, and kept networking a lot with legislators and helping them understand the changes and why the changes were made.
And then when year 3, when it got through, that was when it was more of a balanced approach, correct?
Yeah, there were all. I think year 2 it was balanced, but politically it wasn't going to fly for whatever reason.
Sure.
I think they weren't ready to change the investment return assumption. Then it finally happened, and they implemented the changes. They're moving forward now, but it was a process. It took a lot of work to find sort of the balanced solution, and then a lot of work afterwards to get it through the legislative process, including the governor.
I was wondering, Linda, if we could go through the solution that we thought.
Before you do that, I've got a couple things. Did you have something also?
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's also important for everybody to remember that this is not, whatever we come up with this year is not a solution, so to speak. because this is a sustainability study. We're going to have to keep on top of this. Like every, I'd say 5 years right after an experience study, any tweaking that's going to need to be done to keep the momentum of the growth going. So whatever is come up with in, what year is this, 2019 for 2020, this is going to have to be reviewed again come 2025 and going forward.
I think that's a great point because you can look at a lot of the work that we've done with 30-year projections, and it looks real precise and looks pretty, impressive. But it's based on so many different assumptions. And I always say this tongue in cheek, but the only thing I can tell you is that won't happen. Every single year, we're not going to hit our assumption. Over the long run, we might be right, but it will not play out like this. And so what Cecilia's saying is really, really true. And in Minnesota, they sort of put it right out there to their membership and all the stakeholders is this isn't an end all. We don't make this change and put it on the shelf for 20 or 30 years. We have to keep revisiting it. Assumptions change, experience is different, economic conditions change, membership, your active membership. I mean, it all changes. People live longer. There's all sorts of changes. We're anticipating some of those. Doesn't mean they'll play out that way.
One of the things that Minnesota did, which I noticed you did pick up on, they never used the word sacrifice. It's all about some shared responsibility. It's going to be responsible. Who's going to be responsible? Who's going to step up to the plate? Sacrifice has such a negative connotation. I was suggesting you might want to look at that particular phrase in a couple places in your slides. The other thing, the one thing that's going to make this plan better is consistent contributions. And consistent contributions that are slightly higher than the actual minimum required. I'm very glad that you've decided to match the contributions that were required prior to our amortization change, because that means more money will be coming in. It'll solve it faster. As Pat has said a number of times, you can pay me now or you can pay me more later. The more money you put in up front, the less it costs you in the long run. And I think that's the message I would like to give. Consistent contributions that are slightly in excess of the minimum required will help to solve this problem.
Well, done. Done. We can check that box.
Yes.
So.
So we did. We had a couple of things I think that were lifted in here, and so Pat, maybe you can help steer us or say, hey, we've got to look at that and we'll come back to that, right? So we get that. So the first is the 30-year cap that's proposed in Design Plan C. The question was, is that on new or existing employees?
On both.
On both.
So current, active, and future hires.
There was a time frame. Yeah.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
It's on both. The 30-year cap question that the group asked, she's saying it's on both.
Yeah. I think that change, this one is Cecilia, that we had a lot of those changes in 2020. Yeah, January 1, 2022.
But it wasn't going to be available to anybody who was just retiring. It was going to be for people who their retirement, because we looked at ages like 45 on
the cap?
Yeah.
And I apologize, we did a whole bunch of studies and it's hard to remember, but we can solidify that. There may have been sort of a protection.
A protection for people who are retiring over the next several years.
Okay.
We usually call that grandfathering.
Okay.
So, yeah, people with a certain criteria.
Question here from Mr. Hayes.
How could you do that without a benefit change as part of the current formula contract?
No, it was just to see what the savings is. That's all this was.
So you members would have to elect into that, right?
It depends on if we move forward with it. Legislation would have to be worded to give people options. This is just to see what the savings were.
But this would have assumed it applied to anybody who had more than 30 years of service when they retired. This was not a voluntary. When we price the savings, this assumes it applies.
precedence for doing that.
I'm happy to say that's a legal question, and I did not work through that.
I knew you were going to say that.
They know me too well. Actuarial questions, yes, they're legal. I mean, that could probably apply to almost anything we looked at. I mean, there's arguments to probably be made, but and a lot of this, I guess, I mean,
Yeah.
and I think you said it earlier, a lot of this just got ideas, just throw them out there. You know, we might hate them, and you know, we might not have any
But the
merit. But
question was,
unless you
what is the
quantify it, you
savings?
just don't know.
And that might be a very Clatterback question too, just to see how can we do that and not run afoul of any case law.
Right. Yeah.
I think if you get to the point that that's maybe something we seriously want to look at, then you follow it up with that
Yeah.
for sure.
So the other question is, how is the interest calculated?
Yeah, this is a little complicated. So a number of these ideas were just bad ideas, like they didn't have a lot of meat on the bones as far as looking at pricing it. So we basically decided, I think you and I decided, that the refund would come on the earliest years. Because that's when they're hired. We want to, you know, we're trying to save money. So basically, let's say somebody is going to retire at 35. Okay, so the first 5 years of contributions is what gets refunded. Okay, they don't start getting interest though until the person hits the 30, because that's when the cap starts. And then we just use the inflation assumption to price the interest on contributions, for lack of anything better. Again, if this is something of interest that we want to pursue, then we need more details, and then we run a more refined estimate.
Was there a reason for, like, you know, looking at it, calculating wise, to not offer a PLSL option in that Plan C? Is there any reason to not?
No.
I don't think so. I think these were just plan designs, putting different things together, trying to vary it a little bit.
We didn't know if that was a puzzle piece that would eschew something else, or was there?
No, and in fact, we had
Hope that goes through anyway.
Okay.
had a number of conversations.
I don't think you should assume that the four scenarios we put together were done with a great deal of thought that this is the best package. It's just here's a way to combine things, so you can see if you have something else you want to combine.
Sure.
You come up with what you want to combine, and she can combine it.
Yeah.
It's just an idea. You can combine a lot of different ideas.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out what ideas you want to have.
Very good. Very good. And then the $30 million ARC amount in that plan. How did that get calculated, or how is that? Is that a part of just the current number, and then an assumption to your point about the increased amount, and that would help in that plan to expedite?
Well, so we were running the scenarios with what, 20, 25, and 30.
With and without
escalation. But I don't know if Ms. Richards, if you're aware of, back in 2017, we looked at this.
Okay.
And the number that was needed to, if all things being equal, was $20 million a year with a 3% increase every year. Okay. Well, that was back in 17. So we know we need more money now than $20 million.
Okay, so you started with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know.
Right. And so given we haven't met the assumptions, all the investment assumptions since 2017, we know it's going to be more than $20 million.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yes. Other questions on Plan C that we did not, that had triggered here that you want to ask? Okay, and I'm going to assume then Plan D, that question is the same answer you just answered with regard to that. All right. So as it relates, I know that we have to start moving on to other meetings that are occurring here this evening. So my question to, I guess, all of us is, how can we move forward together? And what do we envision that looking like? and what steps can we take to make that happen. What I heard was that the report's been provided to board president, superintendent, along with a memorandum for that review. I suspect that that's being reviewed, has been reviewed, has been looked at, or is in the process in some capacity. You see some of the questions that this group had. Is there an opportunity for this collective group to come together to discuss options, if there are additional looks at various options that are there to have those run?
Linda, what was the effect of a new tier?
The effect of a new tier?
We'd have to actually design it, right? So
Correct. Yep. So when you look at what scenario, Dr. Logan, we looked at in our work session, I do believe there was one scenario.
Was that the hybrid?
The hybrid. The hybrid is in the report.
Right.
That is correct.
Right.
And that did have a series of various things that would be a part of that tier. The new tier for hires under options in the work session report that we had reducing contributions by $100 million over 30 years. But that was with some assumptions that there would be changes in the structure of what that tier was made of.
What were the assumptions?
I don't know. Do we know?
Pat, do you know?
Are we talking about the hybrid plan,
Or the new tier, we've been from your...
Yeah. If it's our work, I know. If you're talking about better coalition, I don't know.
Oh, you're talking ours.
Okay, so it was a hybrid plan, and the formula benefit was a 1% multiplier instead of the 2. Final average salary was over the highest 5 years.
The hybrid.
Normal retirement, which is age 67 with 5 years of service, kind of linking that to Social Security for most folks that you would be hiring. You could take early retirement at 62 with 5 years, but it would be reduced actuarially, which means it's cost neutral to the system. And there would be a 1% COLA that starts 36 months after retirement. There was no partial lump sum option for the Tier 5 members because there would likely be employee contributions going into a defined contribution plan, which provides the lump sum component of retirement planning. Employee contribution would be 4% of pay. That's it. That's the basic framework, we worked on. We didn't get into pre-retirement death and
Defined contribution or defined benefit? Just defined contribution.
Yeah.
No, not defined benefit. Yeah. In that tier.
No, that tier is the hybrid.
It's a hybrid. It's both.
It's
Sorry.
both.
DB and DB.
Right.
Yeah.
But the employer money is funding the DB plan.
Not the DC.
And 4% of the employee money. So at least theoretically, there could be some additional employee money that went into a defined contribution plan.
So employees could option in more money.
Within limits, and right, we have to define it, right.
Linda, can I just say something? Is it fair to say at this point, we've kind of done the study, we've given it to the plan sponsor.
Yep.
Are they kind of looking now, they being the plan sponsor, the school board, whomever, are they kind of looking to the coalition now to kind of run with this plan? Or are they? The school board's not going to tonight say, well, we're picking plan A.
No, no. I think that thus the reason for this meeting, I think, was to say, how do we come together and talk through these options and see if there are things that can move forward and should move forward. It is September, and we have time, if we're looking legislatively, that there's something we want to address. Again, to your point, if there's something we can collectively come around, now would be the time to start having those conversations, having those discussions, and trying to put that together. Coulterman, I think, from our work session, my gathering from him, was that that's what he wants. He wants to hear if there is something, then let's bring it forward. And so, personally, just as a facilitator in conversations, one group over here and one group over there, we've done that. So now we're at a point where both groups coming together and saying, what do we think about? Are there some options that we haven't, that are in here that maybe we should ask some numbers on? What say us to these various options, like, to your point about this point in this plan or this point in this plan? Can we come around something that has some consensus that we can move forward on? And I think doing that together, A, is healthy. B, it's time to do that. This is one district, this is one community, and that's how we need to lead. And so that's what we envisioned. And so we just felt like it was time to have a conversation about how can we move forward together and do some work together collectively.
Because I don't think this board says, okay, here are the 4 plans, pick one and we're done. I mean, that wasn't our intent at all.
No, and we didn't see it as that. That's why we thought that it was a good timing-wise. It was a good time to come and have this conversation about how can we move together forward and talk about what those options can be going forward.
Tell us, I mean, what would you like from us at this point? Maybe that's a better question. What are you looking for from us?
Well, I think for us to walk through these scenarios together, whatever options that we haven't analyzed, that maybe we have a few, and we can come back and talk through. Maybe there's a couple of things that we want to ask that we run some numbers on and see. And then we get in, I guess, into a room and spend a couple of hours talking through these and let folks kind of vet around those designs or those options, and let's see what we can move from the collective menu board over to a whiteboard that maybe can move forward and give a shot at that. So I think that would be a productive opportunity.
I'm hearing you say trying to build a consensus then about of these multitude of options, which might be possibly, hopefully, maybe the best choice.
Right. All of those words. Possibly, maybe, right?
And
because at the end of the day, back to our point about the conversation with Senator Coulterman, he's also got to weigh his ability. I mean, there's plausibility that we've got to take into this on whether or not we have the bandwidth to make this happen. But if we can't figure out what can go onto that one white sheet of paper, there's no way he's going to be able to do that.
And then that would then go to the school district, the school board.
Yeah, whatever process policy-wise they need to execute, we would want them to execute, right? If there's adoption of that or whatnot. And then to Dr. Logan's point, I think it would be very important that we then spend some time educating the senator and the retirement committee, quite honestly, and maybe some other key senators here in the district about what it is that we've done, the work that's been done, what we are presenting, be a part of what would be carried legislatively, and get some feedback from that and see what can move forward. And then collectively together take the energy and the effort to make that lift, because it is a lift. But doing it together, I think, is what's key here. And that's why we're here.
Probably the biggest thing for us to decide and weigh is, there's 2 ways we can fix it. There's the benefit side and there's the funding side. Where do we kind of all stand and all that?
Right. And I think getting in a room and having that conversation about what does that look like, back to that balance. How do we find that? I think at the end of the day, this group has been diligent in asking really good questions of ourselves about how do we not have it hurt our retirees, be the bulk of where they're at, or
current students.
Yeah, current students and the funding, so that we are, we're in the business of education, and the doors have to open. We have to educate kids. How do we balance those things, and what does that look like? And ultimately, what can make an impact? Knowing also that the reality of it is that it's fluctuating and there's movement happening, and so let's don't overreact, but let's also don't underreact. Let's take steps that we know we can take to have an impact. But let's do it together is what we're asking. So that's what we envisioned in coming here today. Was really we appreciated the work that had occurred, and so it's time now, I think, for us to get in a room and think about that menu and see if we can pull over an entree.
So maybe the next thing is for a few of us to get together, kind of talk about the logistics of that sort of thing, kind of come up with a strategy on moving forward.
Yep. Be willing, absolutely. Glad to do that.
I also propose that we focus our energy on a new tier, considering some of the other things that are going on in the state around when folks have tried to change benefits, and pending litigation.
Yes.
And also, as Walter Sue brought up, some of the concerns of the chair of the retirement committee, that
Absolutely.
we focus our energies in there. So we're not, I think we need to converge around like
Yeah.
190 or
Yeah.
42,
Yeah.
not have
Yeah.
4 from this one, 4
Right.
from another.
Exactly. That would be the best approach for him.
That's just my
Right?
that's my
would assume.
suggestion. And then we have to kind of get out there and kind of test the waters for what that could be, and what the timetable could potentially be on that.
That's
Because
right.
we are in the middle of a study, so we know nothing's going to happen before that study comes out.
That's true.
So that we also calibrate expectations about what's going to be accomplished by this group and when it's going to be accomplished.
Yes. Noted.
One thing I'd like to have you consider, it just came out in August of this year, the National Institute on Retirement Security just did a study of 4 states, Kentucky, Alaska, Michigan, and West Virginia, who developed a hybrid plan for their systems. And they've now had enough experience with those hybrid plans they can kind of compare the costs. And what they showed from the analysis was that every time they made the conversion, it cost more money to make the conversion than it did to keep what they had. That it decreased the retirement security. The total cost of taxpayer increased. There was no increase in the funding ratio. The plan was being modified. And it increased the challenges of recruiting and retaining employees. I can share that with you if you want me
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. I appreciate that.
And you can, it's online. I can give you the
Yeah,
website.
that'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Those nerds, right?
The nerds.
So I think one thing we probably need to make a decision as the OSERS board is whether Pat can do some work for Better Together Coalition, right? If you want her to run some scenarios, we have to approve that.
Yes. I'm assuming that that's the case since it's not.
I think that's one thing you're asking.
Yes, we are. Yeah, there would be some of those things that we talked scenario-wise that we've not seen because we don't have that data. So that is accurate.
So is that something you want us to approve now, or wait until we actually get back together and do the...
I think we've just had this to digest today.
Yep.
I think let's take what we have and I'm going to ask Cecilia and Linda kind of get together and kind of facilitate a small group meeting and kind of decide the next steps here. Those kind of things I think can be discussed at that time.
Great.
That's okay.
Sounds good to us.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Other
you.
questions? Anything else? Coalition members. Awesome. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. How about I give you my card?
How much time do we
You can
have?
send it in 15 minutes. Okay, great. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. And I will send this electronically to all of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have about 15 minutes to try to finish up our business and get out of here before the school board kicks us out of here. So at this point, I would ask Cecilia for the executive director's report.
Okay, just to bring everybody up to speed, staff is processing the new school year changeover communications. What does that mean? That means, terminations for the 2019 school year. So staff is processing 234 non-vested, 173 vested, for a total of 407 people who have left the school district and are already calling looking for their money. Okay.
Is that more than usual?
Yes, that is more than usual, than last year. And then new employees coming in, because we do put out a communication to our new employees about the pension plan, and that's 490 pieces of communication that are being processed right now. So, just an FYI, I'm going to be out of the office I plan right now, it might change by the time we get closer, to be out of the office the 25th and 26th. Aon Consulting is having a client conference, so I'll just be off-site for 2 days.
What's the usual number? You said this number was higher. What's the number? This is my understanding that this is about the normal number.
The new employees, for some reason, that's a little bit higher. It's in the 400 range.
We have 54,000 students.
Right.
So we would have more.
Right, but the termination wasn't in the 400 range. Last year was about 300
375 or so.
something like 300, 350. Didn't cross into 400s.
Yeah, I thought it was close.
Let's see, LB 31 study.
The reason I say that is because I just like, if you're giving out numbers here,
Right,
people take those
compare.
numbers, Cecilia, and they share those numbers. And so you've made a statement that the number is a lot higher, and I know that I don't believe that number. I believe the number is about 375 employees. That's for the number of kids. We have almost 1,000 kids more. That equates to that many more employees. You see what I'm saying? So I just. If we're
And
gonna make those statements,
I asked them for today's numbers.
Yeah.
I should have asked them for
Just
last
be-
year's. Yeah.
We're just not. We don't necessarily need to make the other statement if we're not going to be precise about the number.
Appreciate it. Administration questions are still being answered. IT questions that the LB 31 study brought forth. I have to meet with Mr. Wakefield tomorrow because I think there are more questions on the questions. So he and I are going to get together tomorrow. Actuarial services RFP. At the last board meeting, the meeting on August 6th, or after that meeting, that's when I was informed that the OPS purchasing was not going to assist OSERS, was not in a position to assist OSERS with the RFP, so I sent out a revised schedule. The board should have received that revised schedule on or about August 9th. It calls for issuing the RFP on this Friday, September 6th. That is my intent. And however, at the October board meeting, we will need to decide how the responses will be evaluated. So just think about that for the October meeting. Okay, and that concludes the ED report.
Okay. Any questions on that report from Cecilia? Seeing none, are there any trustees' reports? Okay. Any new business? All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 5:36. Is that for time?